with him returning full-time last week after months out due to management and creative disputes with Vince Russo, with the storyline explanation that he was reinstated by new CEO Ric Flair. Lex Luger opened the show going straight at announcer Mark Madden, telling him to stand up in an unscripted moment after Madden last week made a comment on Luger returning at a higher body fat percentage than before, due to Luger in his return promo saying that he's 5% body fat instead of 4%. Resulting in Luger hearing about it later and responding tonight in a shoot promo on Madden, telling him to keep his big fat mouth shut and not comment again on one of the best conditioned athletes in the history of the sport, before going to the ring to his planned promo hyping his upcoming pay-per-view match against Bill Goldberg in 3 weeks. With talks of the deal cooling off significantly in the past week, a reliable source from the broadcasting and cable website quoted Linda McMahon with official confirmation that negotiations between the WWF and Time Warner broke down after they could not agree on several issues, from the price of the WCW name brand to the 4 primetime hours of television, with Vince McMahon as late as just a few days ago at the company's entry event to the New York Stock Exchange confirmed the talks are still going on despite the company's exclusive TV deal with Viacom, with the recent news again putting Eric Bischoff as the favorite to take over the company in a deal that will involve Hulk Hogan and likely Randy Savage. CEO Ric Flair was out next, announcing 3 matches for the Mayhem pay-per-view, with Morris against Storm for the US title and a double main event with Goldberg vs. Luger and Steiner vs. Booker for the title, hyping the title match before sending a message to Scott Steiner saying that he respects him as an athlete but his conduct is unacceptable to bring him out to the ring, with Steiner telling Flair that he never liked him and will never take orders from him whether he's the CEO or the janitor, about to take him out before Booker ran out for the save, with this segment peaking the first hour with a 3.3 rating. With Flair hyping another return after reinstating Luger last week, a minute from the top of the hour Dallas Page made his TV return to a massive ovation from the Chicago crowd, saying that everything that happened in the company in the past year made him uncharacteristically negative, but now as a shoot after hearing the pop from the crowd he's ready to be back and have fun again, bringing out Bagwell Cat and Rick Steiner in a brawl with participants from TV show Battle Dome in the front row, opening the first opposed quarter with a 2.2 rating. With Rock and Austin having a heated confrontation last Thursday that saw them exchanging shots for the first time in front of one of the biggest audiences in SmackDown history. The slow build-up to the upcoming WrestleMania main event, 2 years in the making, took another step with Raw tonight coming from the home of the event in Houston, Texas, starting with Vince McMahon making a surprise appearance in his TV return after months out of TV storylines since being written off in June, hyping the main event for tonight with Austin and Rock teaming up for the first time in a year against Angle and Rikishi, but otherwise cutting an unusual promo not related to the show but to the US election day tomorrow to encourage viewers to vote for the next president, telling the audience that even if they don't like either candidate as they're all liars, to at least vote for the one who's lying less. Closing the speech just as Steve Austin walked to the ring in the first Austin McMahon meeting on television in a year, telling him that he's not here to cast a vote to shift the focus to his tag match with Rock, saying that he has to team up with the man who gave him a rock bottom on Thursday while warning him not to double-cross him tonight, starting the build to the reveal of the mastermind behind his car attack with the idea that it might be McMahon to open Raw with a 4.7 rating. After usually big drops in the second quarter, Nitro maintained pretty much its entire audience for 45 minutes in the second hour. First by featuring a Steiner and Jarrett vs. Sting and Bagwell tag match going 6 minutes, along with the start of a Morris vs. Wright US title match, while Raw with the continuation of the McMahon-Austin opening segment with Kurt Angle and Stephanie coming out picked up another 800,000 viewers to a 5.3 rating. Ending up with Austin laying out Angle with a stunner, followed by Taker's in-ring TV return in a match against Val Venis going 5 minutes, with Taker going over while paying tribute to one of his closest friends in the business, with him wearing a Yokozuna shirt during the match. Nitro, back at one of its most famous venues over the years in the United Center in Chicago, didn't approach a sold-out house like the glory days of the show that routinely sold out almost the minute tickets were put on sale, but still drawing over 7,000 people, with Nitro peaking at an unusual time between 9:30 to 4:45 p.m., featuring the end of the Wright vs. Morris matching mainly Bill Goldberg vs. Bigelow going 3 minutes. Jumping over 400,000 viewers to Nitro's head-to-head peak 2.3 rating. With Raw coming from the Compaq Center in Houston, Texas in front of a sellout 13,000, the crew will remain in Houston for the next 2 days, with a big press conference set for Wednesday with the McMahons and every top name in the company set to attend the event, announcing that tickets for WrestleMania 17 in the Houston Astrodome go on sale on Saturday, with expectations of all gate records being shattered in the company's first stadium WrestleMania in almost a decade, and after countless TV tapings and house shows, the first Stadium Mania in the current boom period. Nitro's main event with Booker vs. Nash in a title rematch went 5 minutes, and the final quarter, which unusually had 2 commercial breaks while going against the start of the DX Radicals match on Raw, in a rare situation dropped to a show low 1.9 rating, ending up with Booker retaining, with Nitro overall maintaining the bump from the previous week, drawing another 2.5 rating heading into another overseas Nitro next week from London, England. After recruiting the group minutes earlier, Raw's lead-in segment to the top of the hour, which in the past month continuing to be a more important segment for Raw by the week due to the lead-in viewership that watches Nitro, is mostly now a loyal core audience that's not going to switch to the WWF unless it had a major attraction, saw the reunion of DX for one night for the first time since February, and outside X-Pac the entire second version in the ring as babyfaces for the first time since early '99, facing the full Radicals group in a 4-on-4 tag match going 5 minutes, with Triple H, who was reportedly injured last night in a match against Kane, only tagging in for the finish, with him working the show due to being scheduled for a major angle coming up, with the DX Radicals match in the first unopposed quarter gaining over 400,000 viewers to a quarter-high 5.5 rating. with him arriving to the building an hour after the show started, with the announcers building it as Rock arriving uncharacteristically late to continue the build to a possible turn. Angle went after Rock in his locker room minutes later to lay him out with a belt shot to the head, with Rock looking for Angle backstage before finding Austin instead, setting up their follow-up confrontation after the stunner rock-bottom exchange last Thursday, with Rock telling Austin that he hopes he got the message last week that if he has a problem with him he will settle it face-to-face, as Austin responded that he's not trusting anybody and is coming after who is behind it, with Rock closing the segment telling him that it won't be him as he had nothing to do with it. As while Raw's average viewership dropped significantly over the past month with the move to TNN and facing heavier sports competition on Monday nights, SmackDown last Thursday built around the Rock vs. Austin show long Angle and a Rock vs. Angle WWF title main event saw the show staying at record levels with over 8 million viewers, peaking at over 9.2 million viewers for the Rock Angle main event, with SmackDown overall now for the first time consistently outdrawing Raw by a big margin, with the gap reaching around 2 million viewers in the past week to make them both have equal billing from the company as the A shows, and with Rock now scheduled to only work TV tapings and pay-per-views after being taken off house shows for the rest of the year. Austin was booked to fill the void, with him being the only performer on the roster to appear on both house shows yesterday, with the company running 2 events with split crews in New Mexico and San Antonio, which saw Austin wrestling the first one in the afternoon in a tag match with Jericho against Rikishi and Val Venis before being flown to the second one in the evening to have a promo segment during the show. Raw's advertised main event of Rock and Austin teaming up against Angle and Rikishi got a twist minutes before the match, with Rock taken out on the way to the ring, ending up with Austin working a handicap match for several minutes to set up the reveal of Triple H as the one behind the car attack, turning back heel to set up a Austin vs. Hunter feud, with Raw's 7-minute overrun for the tag team match and post-match reveal gaining over 900,000 viewers to the peak of the night 5.7 rating. After the massive success of the Australia tour and another 2 successful tours in England and Germany earlier in the year, WCW, despite the domestic decline, was still booming internationally, with Nitro tonight coming from the London Arena in front of over 10,000 people in the first major televised event from England, kicking off the show with CEO Ric Flair addressing the crowd and the roster to hype the show tonight, with him announcing an 8-man 4-team tournament with the winner getting a title shot on the Nitro after the Mayhem pay-per-view, bringing out Scott Steiner to start a brawl with almost the entire roster in the ring. With Scott Hall released from his WCW contract 2 weeks back after months of Nash pushing for his return on TV, along with crowds in the buildings chanting for him and daily phone calls from fans to WCW's internet show asking about when or if he comes back, Hall finally made his return on Friday, but at an unexpected place, coming out as a surprise in an ECW house show to a huge reaction, working 3 non-televised matches on 2 shows on Friday and Saturday, with the idea of it being a one-shot deal and not a long-term agreement, with the company already in financial struggle and more than likely not being able to afford Hall on a regular basis, with him up until 2 weeks ago still on one of the biggest guaranteed contracts in the industry, with talks of him perhaps working the upcoming ECW December pay-per-view due to a legit friendship with Justin Credible for a match between them. As with Nitro from England taped on Friday, on the same day Hall made his ECW debut, the London crowd started big "We Want Hall" chants during the Nash and Thriller segment to set up their match for tonight, in what was also Nitro's highest-rated segment with a 3.2 rating in a quarter, which also included the Steiner and Sting vs. Awesome and Bigelow tag match, which saw Sting and Steiner advancing. Nitro opened its second hour with the Booker and Luger vs. Chronic tournament match going 5 minutes to end with Steiner running in to cost Booker the match, with Nitro in a quarter, which featured the tag match in the first half of the Nash vs. Thrillers match, saw the show opening with a 2.5 rating against Raw's 4.1. One of the closest margins between the shows in months, with the 2.5 rating also ending up Nitro's head-to-head peak of the night. With the WWF heavily hyping tickets being put on sale for WrestleMania 17 in April in a big press conference in Houston last Wednesday, the results more than matched the high expectations, with it being the first stadium WrestleMania in the current boom period, selling over 50,000 tickets. The first day tickets were released on Saturday to already break the all-time US gate record set at WrestleMania 5 for the Hogan vs. Savage main event, with all indications seeing it on track to break the overall all-time record set a year later at the Toronto Sky Dome for the Hogan vs. Warrior match, with Kurt Angle kicking off Raw with an open challenge for the WWF title taken by Crash, bringing out Hardcore Holly making his return after months out with a legit arm injury from Angle's moonsault back in June, ending up with Edge and Christian, followed by Undertaker coming out to set up Foley booking a 6-man tag for later in the show. Nash vs. the Thrillers went 5 minutes, with Nash making several comebacks before being taken out, going against Raw's hardcore tag match of Jericho and Blackman against Kane and Test to pick Raw up over 800,000 viewers after the slow start to a 4.7 rating, with the WWF dealing with censorship issues from the PTC organization in the past year, especially during a deliberate campaign to try to get high-profile network TV sponsors off SmackDown broadcasts in late '99. The WWF decided to counter it during the week by filing a lawsuit against the fictional organization through McMahon's head attorney Jerry McDevitt, claiming that they tried to lie and intimidate sponsors to damage the company, while hypocritically were being paid by sponsors who sold WWF merchandise while publicly attempting to take them down, with McMahon meanwhile with business booming and the company now public, reportedly purchasing a private plane, with a report documenting his recent week in Texas noting that McMahon and the production crew flew on the plane 90 minutes after last week's Raw in Houston ended to SmackDown in Dallas on Tuesday morning, followed by another flight to Houston a day later for the Mania 17 press conference, until a fourth flight back to Stamford at 3 a.m., as just 3 to 4 years from when McMahon almost declared bankruptcy with the company in the red, the days of him flying commercially were over. After an angle during the first hour that saw Disco and Right paying Chronic to take their place in a match against Steiner, Ric Flair booked them instead against a surprise opponent, with Bill Goldberg coming out to a huge reaction from the London crowd, taking out both to take the new streak to 18 wins in a quarter, which mostly featured a Morris vs. Storm US title match. Raw jumped over 600,000 viewers to a first-hour high 5.1 rating between 9:30 to 45 for a quarter, featuring the continuation of the Radicals promo, with Mick Foley coming out to announce the main event for tonight, with all 4 Radicals members facing Rock, Austin Gunn and Chyna in an 8-man tag match, along with a backstage brawl that saw Kane putting Jericho through a glass window to set up their match on Sunday, and a Dudleys vs. Taz and Raven tag match going 5 minutes. Nitro's main event of Sting and Steiner against Kronik in the finals of the tournament went 6 minutes, picking the show up around 200,000 viewers to close at a 2.1 rating, ending up with Sting and Steiner going over to set up a match between them for the #1 contender on Thunder in Manchester, with Steiner immediately attacking Sting after the match to bring out Booker for the save, to end up with him laying out both with chair shots to the head, with Nitro overall drawing its highest rating in over a month with a 2.6. With the two heels in the top matches on Sunday and Triple H and Rikishi not scheduled to appear tonight with legitimate back and nose injuries, with Triple H, who had some hip and back issues made worse in a house show match last Sunday, reportedly going into the Austin match injured, with him working through it due to it being a high-profile event and a top 4 pay-per-view headliner. The announcers hyped the arrivals of Rock and Austin, with Rock entering the building over 45 minutes into the show before cutting a classic promo running down the 4 members of the Radicals group while hyping his pay-per-view match against Rikishi in 6 days, with Raw's top-of-the-hour segment seeing the Taker and Hollies vs. Angle, Edge and Christian 6-man tag match going 7 minutes, gaining over 900,000 viewers in the first unopposed quarter to a show-high 5.5 rating. Seeing Angle trying to avoid Taker throughout the match to eventually end up with Taker pinning him for the finish to tease the strong possibility of a title change on Sunday. With the WWF noticing the recent viewership pattern of the show peaking at the top of the hour, in part because of the lead-in WCW audience only switching to Raw the moment Nitro goes off the air, but are not willing to sit through the entire show unless there's a big attraction in the main event. The formatting this week saw a change from normal, as after the usual star power segment or match at 10 p.m., Steve Austin came out for a promo at 10:13 to hold the audience past the usual problematic spot from 10:15 to 45 and was able to maintain the 5.5 rating, with Austin in a different demeanor saying that in the mood he is in right now he needs to be careful with his words or they will take him off the air, hyping a violent match against Triple H on Sunday before throwing the microphone and walking off. With the WWF cemented status as one of the biggest difference makers on television in its current boom period over the last few years, with Raw dominating cable television and SmackDown reviving the UPN network, the company's main competition and focus in the last few months, perhaps even more than WCW, is maintaining its reputation in the TV and entertainment worlds. And while Raw's numbers dropped significantly since the move to TNN in the fall season from its record numbers of the past 18 months, the WWF got another boost to its television status in the latest cable TV rankings, with USA Network dropping 30% in primetime average rating to take it from the #1 rated network to its lowest ranking in years at number 6. While TNN at the same time, driven by Raw, jumped 40% to enter the top 10 for the first time in its history at number 9, with it despite the recent viewership drop on Monday nights giving the WWF more bragging rights for its ability to single-handedly turn around entire networks by the huge audience of Raw. Raw's 8-man tag main event, which saw Rock and Austin teaming up for the first time in over a year after the past week of bait-and-switch matches, went 11 minutes, jumping over 700,000 viewers to close at a 5.3 rating in the 7-minute overrun, with the layout of the match seeing Rock getting his big spots earlier than usual to set up him and Benoit brawling to the back towards the finish, while continuing the Eddie and China angle to set up Austin hitting Eddie with a stunner to go over. ending the show with the go-home angle for Survivor Series with Rock and Benoit in an intense parking lot brawl until a car entered the frame with Rikishi taking out Rock with a sledgehammer while Triple H was revealed as the driver, setting up the injury angle for Rock against Rikishi on Sunday, with Raw overall maintaining its viewership with another routine 5 rating heading into the pay-per-view. With the hype for the XFL about to go into overdrive heading into its debut in February, Vince McMahon in a press conference on Thursday added big media coverage for the launch by announcing Governor Jesse Ventura to be the NBC broadcast announcer for the league, with McMahon during the press conference also making headlines inside the industry answering questions about the potential WCW sale, confirming publicly for the first time that the only thing that stopped the WWF from buying WCW last month was a last-minute issue between the company to its new TV home in Viacom, saying that negotiations were going well with Turner and a deal was about to be done before Viacom, who have an exclusivity clause on WWF programming, signed just 2 months ago. Days before the agreement asked McMahon for a major increase in price to complete the deal, which broke down negotiations with Turner, with Vince saying that from that point no further contact was made and currently the deal is off the table. Ric Flair came out for a promo 15 minutes into the show, adding a stipulation to the Booker vs. Luger title match booked by Commissioner Mike Sanders for tonight, saying that if Luger wins the title tonight, the Goldberg vs. Luger match on Sunday will be for the belt, overruling Russo's stipulation of Goldberg having to match his winning streak to get another shot at the title, with Russo reportedly getting another doctor evaluation during the week which came back negative, with him still suffering from post-concussion symptoms and not ready to be back. As with the collapse of McMahon's deal to buy the company, the door was opened again to Eric Bischoff, with him reportedly for the first time since the Bash at the Beach pay-per-view in July involved in WCW programming on the TV product, with him reportedly in charge of the crossover angle between WCW to TV show Battledome, which saw another segment on the night with Rick Steiner calling them out. Nash walked to the ring 5 minutes from the top of the hour, announcing that starting this morning he has 13 months and 10 days left on his WCW contract and he's gonna make the most of the time remaining on his deal, saying that he drove with a good friend from Atlanta to tease the possibility of Scott Hall, calling out the Thrillers to challenge them for a tag title shot at Mayhem to bring them out, with Sanders booking the match for Sunday even if Nash has to wrestle them in a handicap match to start a Nash Thrillers brawl, revealing the partner to be the returning Dallas Page, running in a few seconds after 9 p.m. to set up the tag titles match, with this segment ending 2 minutes into the quarter, with the rest of it mostly featuring a Morris and Meng vs. Duggan and Storm tag match going 3 minutes, opening the head-to-head quarter lower than usual with a 2 rating. With the Survivor Series pay-per-view last night going off the air with Triple H being dropped by a forklift and smashed inside a car, Stephanie was out first to open Raw for a medical update on his condition, saying that Hunter survived but was severely injured and is going to be under medical care for the next few days, with Hunter, while selling the angle, going to be off for a few weeks with legit back and hip issues which escalated in the past 2 weeks. As Stephanie said that Hunter asked her to publicly apologize to Austin to bring him out to the ring, immediately aggressively going off on her, saying that the only thing he's sorry about is that Hunter is only laying in a hospital bed instead of a funeral home, sending a message to Hunter watching Raw on TV from the hospital to run Stephanie off, with Raw coming off a major pay-per-view along with the added buzz coming from the Jesse Ventura XFL announcement. opened in the normal range at a 4.5 rating. Sanders was out on commentary after booking his pay-per-view opponent on Sunday against a mystery opponent which turned out to be Goldberg, taking out Wee followed by him sending Sanders a message with Ric Flair coming out to book another impromptu match, setting up Goldberg vs Sanders on the spot with Goldberg going over in less than a minute, with the unadvertised Goldberg matches holding Nitro steady at a 2 rating with another Goldberg appearance teased for the main event with interviews from both Luger and Booker to set the stage. Chris Benoit was out next to confront Austin, saying that he sees him giving stunners and using a forklift but doesn't see a lot of wrestling since he's been back, saying that he's not impressed with Austin to challenge him to a wrestling match tonight, with Austin taking the challenge, setting up a first-time Austin vs Benoit main event in a match designed to be Austin's first in-ring singles match since coming back, with Raw's second quarter with the Benoit-Austin segment followed by a Dudleys vs Right to Censor tag titles match going 4 minutes, jumping over 400,000 viewers to a 4.7 rating. WCW, which stayed in the same number for the entire opposed hour near the 2 rating range, increased slightly to a hour-high 2.1 rating between 9:30 to 45 for a quarter, featuring a Shane Douglas vs Buff Bagwell match going 6 minutes to end up with Bagwell going over after Jarrett and Kat's interferences. While going against it, Raw had an unusual quarter with most of it taking place backstage, featuring a promo from Jericho talking about his match against Kane from last night, followed by a promo from Rock following up on the Rikishi pay-per-view match after winning the match but being left laying, promising to lay out Rikishi in the tag match coming up, in a quarter which besides the backstage segments also saw a hardcore match going backstage with Holly vs Regal going 3 minutes, maintaining a 4.6 to 2.1 rating margin. Scott Steiner opened Nitro's final quarter with the final hype promo for the title match against Booker on Sunday, saying that the company tried to screw him out of the title for the last decade while continuing to do it, with Ric Flair putting the stipulation for the upcoming main event, joining the commentary table to ensure that Booker walks out with the title and counter the expected Goldberg interference, with Booker and Luger going 4 minutes, ending with a Steiner-Goldberg brawl with Goldberg accidentally costing Luger the match, with Nitro's closing quarter going head-to-head with the Rock tag match on Raw dropping to a show low 1.9 rating, with Nitro overall after last week from London drawing its highest rating in over a month, taking a hit to one of the lowest rated shows in its history with a 2.3 rating. With the knowledge in the past month of the top of the hour now being perhaps the highest profile quarter of the night for the first time in show history due to the WCW viewership being at its core and Nitro not crossing into an overrun, Raw placed The Rock and Jericho vs. Kane and Rikishi tag match to go against the Nitro finish while crossing over 10 p.m., making their entrances at 9:54 to go, 9 minutes with Rock and Jericho going over, followed by a post-match beatdown with Rock and Jericho laying out both their pay-per-view opponents with a sharpshooter and the walls to a big reaction, resulting in the match picking up Raw a total of over 1.2 million viewers to its highest opposed quarter of the night with a 5 rating, followed by the overall peak of the night 5.5, again peaking the show between 10 to 10:15 p.m. for the third time in the past 4 weeks to further cement the importance of the time slot going forward, with the second half of the quarter seeing the follow-up of the clever swerve at the finish of last night's Angle vs. Taker title match, with Kurt coming out with brother Eric Angle to explain the situation, putting over Eric as an all-American athlete, with him perhaps also looking to get into the business under the company's developmental deal, ending up with Taker taking them out to close the segment with him chalk slamming Kurt off the entrance stage. After the peak segment at 10 p.m., Raw maintained a 5.3 rating in the next quarter, featuring a Foley and Taker backstage segment and a Radicals vs. Billy Gunn, Road Dogg and Ron Killings 6-man tag match, as with the WWF loaded with star power, with all the top guys simultaneously working full-time for the first time since September '99. And with Rock and Austin's segments and matches usually getting top billing in the main TV time slots from the opening quarter to the top of the hour to the overrun. A new challenge for the company's creative is placing the top names in high-profile segments on a weekly basis, with Taker on the night after taking out the Angle brothers earlier being booked in an impromptu handicap match against Edge and Christian at 10:40, going 3 minutes to end, with Taker going over clean just before the main event. Chris Benoit made his entrance for the main event at 10:54 p.m. just before the final commercial break for a short hype promo, followed by Austin walking to the ring moments later, with the Austin vs. Benoit match in the first ever match between them, with Benoit signing with WCW after Austin was fired and coming to the WWF with Austin out with injury, built on Austin working a straight wrestling match for the first time post-neck injury to establish his current condition and answer questions on his style going forward, with the layout of the match seeing Austin out-wrestling Benoit in several exchanges until Benoit took over, to result in Austin taking several back bumps and suplexes to establish that he's back at or close to a 100% after the last month of mostly being involved in out-of-the-ring brawls, going 9 minutes with Austin going over clean with a stunner, with the Austin-Benoit match crossing into an 8-minute overrun, gaining over 400,000 viewers back to close the show at a 5.3 rating. With him one of the top performers in their business as a tag team wrestler since the start of the decade, while establishing himself as one of the top singles wrestlers towards the end of it, with him one of the consistent drawing performers throughout the run. Scott Steiner finally won the WCW title for the first time last night, going over Booker in the pay-per-view main event in a move years in the making, with Steiner in his follow-up title win promo saying that he's still looking for a fight after taking out Booker and Sting while beating Goldberg in their last match, bringing out Ric Flair to congratulate Steiner, saying that he's now the top guy in the company and he's got a special opponent for him to face on the Starrcade pay-per-view on the way to the building, with Steiner asking if it's Andre before calling out Austin, and Rock saying that he used to beat up Austin when he was in WCW and Rock won't dare show up here if you smell what he's cooking, as Flair hyped the upcoming mystery opponent to be on the same elite level as Rock and Austin before Stevie Ray came out looking to get Steiner back for taking out Booker last night, setting up a Steiner vs. Ray title vs. career match for the main event, with Steiner's first segment with the title jumping over 900,000 viewers to the overall show peak 2.8 rating. with Vince McMahon publicly confirming last week that they are out of negotiations to buy WCW due to interference from their new TV home in Viacom after at one point a deal with Turner was all but done. Eric Bischoff was back in the game as the favorite, with him reportedly meeting Brad Siegel in LA during the week to discuss a potential deal, as after at one point Mandalay Sports Group was the company financially backing the move. Eric's rumored new group is production company TriStar to head negotiations with Turner Broadcasting to buy the company, coming after Eric worked with the group over the last month by overseeing the crossover WCW vs. TV series Battle Dome, with talks of Bischoff planning the new WCW home base to be in Las Vegas, similar to the start of the Nitro era when TV tapings took place in the Disney MGM studios. New tag champions Nash and Page opened the first opposed quarter in one of the most talked about segments of the night, with both again going against management orders, bringing up Scott Hall, this time going a step further with them calling out the company to bring him back, with the crowd, as they did all throughout the tour in Europe and on the pay-per-view last night, chanting for Hall throughout the segment, with Nash and Page teasing his return as if it's part of the planned angle while naming themselves the Insiders in anticipation for the return of the second outsider, followed by the Thrillers coming out to the Wolfpack music, with the building popping for the possibility of Hall showing up, setting up a Nash and Page vs. Jindrak and O'Haire tag titles match going 4 minutes to peak the night for WCW in the opposed hour with a 2.4 rating. With the Armageddon pay-per-view just 2 weeks away, with him still not having a set opponent, Kurt Angle opened Raw saying that things are getting out of control in the WWF between the Austin Rikishi Triple H car attacks and Undertaker choke slamming him off the stage last Monday, saying that it's not what he signed for when becoming a wrestler, and if the violent acts continues he's gonna take the title home and not defend it at the next pay-per-view, bringing out Mick Foley to agree with Kurt on things getting out of control while announcing a Rock vs. Rikishi #1 contender match for Angle's title at the Armageddon pay-per-view, along with Kurt defending the title tonight against an unnamed opponent to kick off Raw at a 4.1 rating. In what became a weekly segment on the show at the exact same time slot since the new creative crew returned from Australia, continued on the night, with Goldberg again coming out as a surprise opponent in the second quarter at 9:15, with the idea of putting a Goldberg match in the usual weak spot on the show to maintain as many viewers as possible, going over Reno before Luger attacked him in the post-match angle. As with Russo remaining on the sidelines with complications from the series of concussions he suffered between June to October, with his latest doctor evaluation prohibiting him from traveling until the next evaluation on his condition in January. Ed Ferrara continues to be the main script writer of the shows in a committee with Terry Taylor, Disco Ball Rash and Banks, with Russo having close to no influence on the show since mid-October, with everything on hold until the status of the company and its future owner would be made clear. As Raw's second quarter after the lower-than-usual start picked up over 600,000 viewers for a series of Kurt Angle backstage segments and a Hollies vs. Testa and Albert six-man tag match going 5 minutes, opening a 4.5 to 2.1 rating margin. Both shows stayed steady next, with Scott Steiner going to the limousine to confront his next opponent, along with the Jeff Jarrett vs. Rey Mysterio match going 5 minutes. while Raw had a Billy Gunn vs Eddie Guerrero rematch going 6 minutes after Gunn won the IC title on SmackDown last Thursday, as with talks of it starting a few weeks back and being confirmed publicly during the week with her doing a newspaper interview. Stephanie McMahon, with no credentials, experience, or any kind of creative reputation, was reportedly being put in charge of overseeing the WWF TV creative crew for Raw and SmackDown, raising questions from every side of the business on the move, which was seemingly done for no legitimate reason other than her last name, which will give Vince stability in the position whether qualified for the role or not. With the limousine arriving outside the building with Flair yet to reveal the contender for the title, Scott Steiner was set for his first title defense in the main event against Stevie Ray, with Ray's career on the line, seeing the match jump over 400,000 viewers to a 2.3 rating, the highest rated main event quarter on Nitro in almost 2 months, as Steiner and Ray went 7 minutes, with Steiner going over Ray to retire him, closing the show with the reveal of Steiner's Starrcade opponent ending up being Seed, making his return after months out to set up Steiner vs Seed in 3 weeks. Raw closed out its first hour placing The Rock vs Rikishi #1 contender match at around 9:50 p.m. in a rare Rock match during the first hour, jumping over 700,000 viewers to a head-to-head peak 4.8 rating, going 3 minutes with Kurt Angle on commentary interfering for the finish, laying out Rock with him having the match won with the sharpshooter, with the rest of the quarter seeing Foley looking for Angle backstage and a Radicals Hardys brawl to hype their 6-man tag match coming up. Raw had an unusual top-of-the-hour quarter, with the show in a commercial break while crossing into 10 p.m. the moment Nitro went off the air, while in the middle featured Undertaker vs Kane going 4 minutes, with Angle legend Christian interfering to attack Taker and eliminate him as a contender to continue the show. Long Angle, followed by another break right after, with Raw picking up around 700,000 viewers in the commercial-heavy quarter to open the unopposed hour at a 5.3 rating, with Foley waiting for Angle in his locker room after interfering in the top 2 matches of the night to book him to defend the title against Steve Austin in the main event, setting up the first ever Angle vs Austin match and Austin's first title match in over a year. With the WWF on a string of huge pay-per-views in the past 3 months, with SummerSlam, Unforgiven and No Mercy averaging close to a massive 600,000 buys, the company announced in its financial report for the quarter between August to October 2000 an increase of over 27% in revenue and 38% in profit, jumping over 35% in pay-per-view buys, headlined by 3 Rock title matches and Austin's appearance and return to the ring, and a massive increase of over 160% in TV revenue due to the new contract signed with Viacom compared to the previous deal with USA Network, as with the WWF still booming across the board heading into what is set to be the biggest money event in its history at WrestleMania 17 in April. 2 key points that raised concern since the report was compiled in the last month was the recent viewership drop for Raw and some of the house show ticket sales slowing down from the peak levels. Raw's final quarter picked up to a show-high 5.6 rating, first seeing Rock attacking Angle legend Christian on the way to the ring minutes before the main event to end, with Foley throwing them out of the building, followed by Austin and Angle in the first ever match between them, going 9 minutes to cross into the 8-minute overrun, maintaining the 5.6 rating to close the show, with the post-match seeing Triple H making his TV return after a week outselling the forklift car angle at Survivor Series to cost Austin the match, as Raw, which saw a routine transition show between pay-per-views, drew another routine 5 rating overall, averaging 6.4 million viewers on TNN compared to last year on the same week drawing 7.6 million on the USA Network, with the 5 rating the same rating it drew in 4 out of the past 5 weeks, with hopes of picking things up heading into the Armageddon pay-per-view and more so at the start of the new year.